creature. Yeah. Oh, we're live. We've got Josh in a blacked out room, and we're officially live.
Yeah, I don't know how much this is going to be possible to even run with me at the helm. I don't know what the hell's going on, boys.
Well, lucky it's a podcast, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
outside of the stream, this makes no difference to people listening. They don't even know what we're talking about. Well, it does sound like his internet's absolutely kaput. I guess this is where Josh would normally say, like, welcome to episode. So I don't even know what episode it is. Welcome
241, it says.
Oh, look at that. Someone's organised. Yeah.
Well, it's at the top of the screen here, but there you go.
Christ, yeah, it is. That's embarrassing, isn't it? Yeah, it says it right there. Oh, yeah. Welcome to episode 241. What did we do? We played Sheffield United in the FA Cup, didn't we? And we played a classic Jekyll and Hyde game. But outside of that, what's going on, Craig? How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I feel like it's been a while. Yeah, life gets in the way sometimes, but yeah, doing well. Surviving the winter. How about you?
Yeah, same. We were just talking about this before we went live. It's not that fun. The winter in the northeast, or where Craig is in the Midwest of the US. It's fairly morbid, but you get through it, and then I guess you can enjoy the spring and the summer for the 3 weeks that occurs for. So yeah. Well, at least we've kind of got some semblance of Brighton football back in the last few days after that, what felt like a very, very long break after that Stoke game. Unfortunately, obviously with the Wolves game, we were incredibly frustrated. And as we go live about 10 minutes ago, we just found out that we've drawn Wolves in the next round of the FA Cup into the fifth round after that victory over Sheffield United. Before we jump into the Sheffield United game and talk about that, thoughts on that draw against Wolves?
Annoying, right? Like, it's just recency bias and the 0-0 draw, and how lackluster it was. Just means like we're just in for 90 minutes more of that. But yeah, I mean, it could have been worse. It could have been better, right? It's kind of middle of the pack for me. But what are your thoughts?
For me, it's actually sort of a worst case scenario. I'd rather face a big side. At least we can see like a fun football game. This is just now going to be miserable, isn't it? And we just got to hope that we can get one in while Gary O'Neill puts 14 men behind, in the goalkeeper's 12-yard area. Like it's just miserable. I'm not happy about that game.
But it's a genuine pathway, right? Like you'd class it as a winnable game. It might be turgid and like horrible to watch, but it's winnable.
It's winnable, but these are the worst games for us, aren't they? These are the horrible ones where, sure, on paper we can win them, but they're also the ones that we end up just looking horrendous in. Because, and maybe this is a nice segue into Sheffield United, because Sheffield United actually tried to play football against us, which is shocking after witnessing, Wolves and then West Ham. I know we had Stoke in between, but two sides that just simply didn't want to play football. And lo and behold, we got a 7-goal thriller. And at least in the second half, it was fairly interesting. Last episode, I know you weren't on this, Craig, but we talked about what was the expected lineup here, because we've got this collection of games coming up, because we played Luton, obviously, as of recording in 2 days now, I think. Yeah. So there was discussion about whether we put out a sort of weaker side. There was none of that, really, was there?
No. You saw a couple of bits of rotation, right? The most notable being Dunk coming out and sitting on the bench for a bit, get a bit of respite. Otherwise, you're looking as strong as a team as you could probably put out, right? If Verbruggen comes back in for the cup game as well. Buonanotte was starting already. Your Gilmore, Webster, Igor, like it looked as good as you could put out. That apart from Dunk coming out, this is as good as you could probably get. So you can tell that De Zerbi takes this seriously. I think you saw that last year with the FA Cup as well, is that there's a real, I say passion, but he's passionate about everything. But there's a real intent with the cup games and these cup runs as well. So it seems to be a focal point as well, where we're actually taking them quite seriously. And judging on how we did last year, he's absolutely right to do so. So yeah, it was a strong lineup, right? So what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, well, when we talked about this, my thought behind it was that maybe he'd splash in some of the the players that haven't been playing quite as much, but broadly it will be a strong team. But we didn't even really see that.
No.
As you say, like the Dunk thing, give him a rest. But outside of that, it's not like Belabor played. It's not like we brought in. Trying to think who else might even have come in. We didn't really give Moda any time. You could have suspected that maybe he got a bit more time on the pitch. Maybe Tarek Lamptey started. None of that. But thankfully, it was a genius rotation of taking Dunk out and putting Adam Webster in, because probably one of the most superb performances I've ever witnessed from a central defender. And he was diabolically bad, wasn't he?
I thought he grew into the game. I think I can tell what you
definitely
mean.
Grew into something, yeah.
Yeah, but I think there was some bits where he was rusty. You get that with Adam Webster, right? He needs, and we've spoken about this so many times, but like he needs a run of consistent games in order to get up to the level that we know he's capable of at. This constant rotation does not suit Adam Webster and his way of working, right? So yeah, I think that's probably it. I did think he actually did well towards the end of the game. I am going to give him credit where I think it's due, in my opinion. But yeah, it's a weird one. You take Dunk out, and it is a worse team anyway, regardless, right? So yeah, you kind of expect that sort of sway. But yeah, I think we've got Josh anyway. So what did you think about Webster and the lineup?
Yeah, Webster is a tough one. Do you know what? I actually felt pretty good about Webster on the right side of a back three, because he's looked all right previously as part of a 3 instead of a 4, but he was not great yesterday. I don't know whether it was a lack of trust in Hinshelwood compared to maybe Veltman playing out there, or whether it just is his rusty self that.
Speaking of rusty selves, sounds like some rusty internet. Yeah, I think there's probably there's a point to be made there, but at the same time, that's a requirement for this team. That's a requirement for the way De Zerbi plays football. You need to be comfortable with whoever switches out next to you, whether it's the goalkeeper behind you, whether it's the right back, whether it's whatever it is. You need to be comfortable, and we've seen the players that are able to adapt to that, and we've seen the ones that can't. Adam Webster is one of the ones that seemingly can't, and until we see something different there, to me, he's an absolute liability. I'm not even going to go on about it. It was just so many situations there where it was bad, but it looks like Robin's jumped in as well. So despite the fact that we're losing Josh to whatever internet-based gremlins he has, we've got Robin featured here. We've not gone through much, Robin. We've just talked about the fact that Josh's internet's crap. We talked about how the lineup didn't really shift too much apart from Dunk coming out, and then how horrendous Adam Webster seems to be at football now.
Agreed all round.
Yeah, that's about it. But why don't we actually get into the meat of the game, because this was a weird one. Normally we do this thing, right, where we start horrendously poorly, and then De Zerbi gets really angry at halftime and the team comes out and performs really well. Instead, we did a sort of footballing skill-based sandwich where it started off really well. We capitulated in a massive way for about 15 minutes in the end of the first half, and then obviously the second half we know what happened. Let's talk about the first sort of 30 minutes. We can't go over that until we talk about the Buonanotte goal. Thoughts about that, because he's been much abused, Buonanotte, in terms of his talent, the mistakes that he's made, how well he fits into this team, if he's up to the speed or pace of English football. Can't really fault that strike there, can you?
It's stunning, isn't it? I think there was always this period of adaptation, similar to what we saw with McAllister as well, and this sort of stuff. And we continue to talk about that all the time, right? But it is going to take time for a 19-year-old Argentinian kid to come straight into the Premier League and make some sort of progress or make a stamp on what we need, right? If he's got the trust and he's got the ability, then it'll come in time. I think you're
please remember that when Valentin Barco starts for us, by the way, that exact phrase.
Yeah. So it's tough, right? And this is the biggest league in the world and all this sort of stuff. And you're 19 years old, but you're starting to see it now. And, there's the potential and the ability is there. It's just doing it on a more consistent basis for him. And if he's able to do that and grow into the game like he did and score wonder strikes like he did yesterday as well, then there's a lot to come. But amazing strike, like just being able to completely give the defender the wrong way and then put it in from 25 yards is special.
Robin, what do you think of that one?
I mean, it was a great move leading up to it. I think it was like 22 passes or something. And it was exactly textbook De Zerbi. They kind of went from one side to the other, went forward, wasn't quite working out on the left, went all the way back, started again. So it was textbook De Zerbi getting it to that point. I actually thought that Buonanotte was sort of running out of options a little bit. And it looked like he almost thought, I've got to take a shot here because there's nothing else particularly on. But, you know, as you say, an unbelievable finish. I think technique-wise, I don't think there's many doubts over him because the Chelsea goal that he scored, whilst obviously not in this league in terms of it being spectacular, the technique was still there. So I think the only question marks people have had about him is his physicality or relative lack of.
And you could argue his decision making as well. You even said it there, right? He ran out of options. He's sometimes he ignores an obvious pass and decides to do something stupid and loses the ball as well.
Yeah. But I think, you know, no one really expected that to end up in the back of the net. Judging by the look on his face when he was celebrating, he didn't think that ball was going to end up in the back of the net either. But yeah, I mean, great goal. Absolutely great goal. And hopefully, you know, it gives him confidence that, you know, he can do that. I suppose the other positive was that, you know, he was, you know, there were defenders around him and he was holding his own, you know, in terms of physicality. So he definitely looks like he is growing in confidence compared to where he was even, you know, 2 or 3 months ago.
You know what I'm quite excited to see? And by the way, I don't think there's any mistakes here in terms of the personnel that have been brought in. Well, if you think about Buonanotte, if you think about Enciso, I mean, we don't even really need to go into deep detail about where Enciso is able to put the ball in the net from. We've seen with Estupiñán, with some of the wonder strikes that he's been able to pull off as well. These are players where I wouldn't be shocked if they've been told by De Zerbi, when you're facing these low block type of setups, not even necessarily Sheffield United doing that massively yesterday, but I think he's probably told them, don't be shy about taking a hit from further out. And we've got players that are capable of doing that. When we get into these situations where we play these games like against the West Hams and the Wolves of the world, you need players that are able to do this type of thing. Because if not, you see what happens against the last time we played those two sides, and you're just slamming your head against the wall. Like if we had Enciso on the pitch against Wolves, if Buonanotte did what he did against Sheffield United against Wolves, completely changes the whole perspective of the game. You're on mute, Robin, if you're saying something particularly intelligent.
So one of the big criticisms, or not criticism, but you know, the one that was rolled out under, you know, Potter was that it was almost he wanted to walk the ball into the back of the net every time. And to an extent, we've seen a little bit of that under De Zerbi with the low block thing, as you say. So actually, it does put something else in the defenders, you know, at the back four's head when they're thinking, hang on a minute, we can't just sit here on the edge of the 6-yard box and just camp there and expect them not to do something. So I think you're right. He probably has. Probably a small number of players. He said, you know, you're free to have a crack. Like I don't think he's going to be encouraging Lewis Dunk to.
You don't want Billy Gilmore shanking it into the stands.
Well, he's another funny one, isn't he? Like, what's going to happen first? I know we're going slightly off piece here. What's going to happen first? Is Lewis Dunk going to score a free kick, or is Billy Gilmore going to score one of these absolute howitzers from about 50 yards out?
I really think that's a situation where you might actually be dealing with one of those sort of metaphors where neither will ever happen.
And we'll waste so much time trying to work out which one.
Unstoppable force, immovable object sort of type of thing where they won't. Nothing will ever come of either.
But it's a great point. I think it does give us, you know, it does give defenses something else to think about.
Evan Ferguson awarded the assist there, which is, you know, not really the greatest assist in the world, considering the strike was didn't matter who passed him the ball. But prior to this point, obviously, Evan Ferguson did have the ball in the net, and it was disallowed for, rightly so, for offside. Yeah. Bit of a shame, but you would expect that to give him a bit more confidence, Evan Ferguson, a guy that we've sort of complained about for his recent performances. He looked a bit sharper yesterday, but still not quite there. So hopefully more to come from Ferguson. What do you think, Craig?
Yeah, he didn't look too happy at all, did he? I watched the highlights back this morning, and he was a bit sour faced, probably because his goal got chalked off. But he looked good, yeah. And I think this comes down to, again, we touched on it at the top of the pod, right, where Sheffield United weren't afraid of playing. Like they were in that block, but only when they needed to be. And we'll talk about their 2 goals as well and how they worked. But they came to play, and I think that it obviously worked in our favor. It tends to naturally when we play as well. But he looked good, holding up the ball, being able to shrug off defenders and be able to keep that ball in the final third and then play it off. It's exactly what you want. It's exactly what Danny Welbeck does. It's exactly what you expect from Evan Ferguson as well. Strong in the air. Shame, like you said, rightly so, got called off, but you have to be in those positions, and they won the penalty the other side as well in the second half. So thought he was good. I think you're seeing more and more. I think the expectation's far too high for someone of his age, and we just need to keep that into consideration. The same with Buonanotte as well, is that there's a level of understanding here that you can't do that day in, day out, because he wouldn't be playing for Brighton otherwise.
He probably feels a little bit aggrieved as well. You'd imagine this is a guy that's probably got as high expectations of himself as everyone else probably does of him now at this point. And he's just then witnessed the guy that, despite having number 9 on his back, does not play in the number 9 position for this club, score a hat-trick, and he hasn't scored for a while. We'll talk about João Pedro's performance as a whole, and how I don't think any of us could have possibly anticipated how successful João Pedro has been so quickly for this club. But let's talk about the first penalty. Was this even a penalty for you? Robin, what did you think?
It's one of those ones that I'm absolutely delighted to get it when it's for us. But if that's given against us, I'm probably raging and chucking the phone out the window. It's the classic "you've seen them given" scenario for me.
It was minimal contact, but you know what? He's proven himself to be absolutely excellent at getting penalties, not just taking them, getting them, and that is clearly an art in and of itself. One thing for me, though, is it just felt like if he just stayed on his feet, which he clearly went down, right? He was tripped a little bit, but he went down. He could have just scored. Like, he was there. It was just absolutely 1-on-1. It was basically a penalty from that position. Josh, Craig, any thoughts on that? We've got Josh back for who knows how long at this point.
I think it's working now. I've restarted everything, and I'm not getting the little thing telling me that my internet is from the poverty world of just bad things. So hopefully it's alive again. I think that we've come to realize, and it's something that we've wanted for a little while, really, that we've talked about for a few years, that we're too nice as a football team. And if we're going to grow in a European stage and in the Premier League, we need to learn how to be a little bit less nice. And one of those ways is having players like Buonanotte and Pedro who are quite happy to go down at the slightest touch of contact and appeal vociferously, regardless of whether it's really a penalty or a free kick or not. And he's 10 from 10 this season. The stats don't lie. He's going down, and he's clearly going down in a way that he's feeling legitimate contact. Whether it's enough to go down or not, I think we all agree it's not, but that's all right, because he's detecting the foul and he's intelligent enough to not be nice enough to try and take that shot and score. He knows he's going to score a penalty every single time at this point. So why not just go down and win the penalty, right? Buonanotte isn't there yet. He's going down with a lot less intelligence when he makes those decisions. But for Pedro, he seems to, at 21, mastered the art of feeling a touch. And I mean, the best in the world, that was for Ronaldo, right? He has always been unbelievably good at feeling the slightest touch for a guy that's essentially built like a Greek god. And he can feel your hair touch his kneecap and he's on the floor, and like VAR will see enough of that contact to say yes. So for me, like, yes, it was a penalty. The contact was absolutely there. It was a lazy, like, it was just like, he was just totally wrong-footed, the defender was. And he'd probably have been better off trying to just see if he could take the shot, because for the most part, prior to yesterday's absolute blast that he took, like, we've seen that Pedro isn't exactly great taking shots in open play compared to the penalty shot. So he probably should have just let him go and see what happened.
We have to be at the point here where João Pedro can already be classified as the best penalty taker that we've seen. He just seems.
I think he's 11 from 11, isn't he? Actually,
but there was some mad quotes coming out yesterday as well from either people that were at the ground that saw the way he took the penalty. I think he came out talking about in training how he takes multiple penalties before every game this season, and he's only missed one in training. Like, his technique is just unbelievably good.
I was talking to someone. It's quite akin to that Jorginho one, isn't it? It's his own little version of that. You kind of know exactly what's coming. I mean, I enjoyed on the clip I saw, he's actually midway through taking the second penalty, he's already smiling because he knows he's sent the goalkeeper the wrong way. He's not even kicked the ball yet, and he already knows what's happening.
That's the opposite of how when I used to take penalties, I was already sad partway through taking the penalty because I knew I'd scuffed it. Yeah. That's
why we don't have João Pedro doing this podcast and you.
Yeah. Oh, he'd probably be quite good at the podcast, wouldn't he? That's the sad thing. Yeah, it's just I'm trying to find this quote while we're talking here, but I'm paraphrasing here, but basically someone said something along the lines of, he doesn't ever look at the ball. He's constantly looking at the goalkeeper. And as he makes his motion to lead up to the ball, he waits for the keeper to put pressure on whichever foot he ends up basically jumping off from. So he knows the direction the keeper's going based on the foot that's putting the pressure down, and he just plants it in the opposite corner. And normally I read stuff like that and I think, well, that's just bullshit, mate. You've just drawn a conclusion from something. But we've now got enough sort of examples to make us sort of feel like that's probably actually true. Ridiculous stuff.
He's just really good at it, isn't he? I think
Josh
mentioned it as.
Sorry,
yeah, go on. No, go on.
I was going to say the other weird thing is that normally players, when a penalty's given, most players are kind of trying to rush through the whole thing, right? They want to get this thing over with as quickly as possible. They don't like the tension. Going back to that Spurs game where VAR gave us a penalty, they hadn't decided whether there was going to be a penalty yet. João Pedro had picked the ball up and was standing on the penalty spot for about 5 minutes before we'd even been given a penalty, which is just it's the opposite to what you expect, right? You think you want to minimize the amount of time you spend in that pressure situation, but he seems to be the opposite, which must do a goalkeeper's head in when you go, this guy really isn't scared of this at all. Like, there's nothing you can do to put him off.
He's got the reputation now as well, right? So you've won 6 out of your 10 penalties. You've taken all 10. You've scored all 10. The pressure's now on the goalkeeper as opposed to João Pedro, because his previous 10 penalties just tells the story. So he has nothing to be scared of. He's fully confident. And yeah, it's just a surefire goal, isn't it? Really, it just gets to that point. And you go back to that where he's like, okay, if João Pedro feels the contact and he knows it is, or he's pretty sure it's going to be a penalty, he's absolutely taking it because he knows he's going to score from 12 yards. Whilst if he continues to play, there is a chance that he's going to miss, or there is a chance that that could go a little bit awry. So, yeah, he's mastered the art of getting the penalties, and he's also mastered the taking. So, if it's going to be a penalty, he's 10 from 10. He knows he's going to score it. It's just an easy goal for him. And 10, and we're just about to roll into February. That's silly, isn't it?
18 goals in 30 appearances this season for João Pedro, and he doesn't play in the number 9 position. I know he's taken a shit ton of penalties, right? That's the caveat there. But specifically looking at the cup performances that he's had, 6 goals in 6 Europa League appearances, 5 goals in 2 FA Cup appearances is what I've got in front of me. That's obscene. And this, like we said, especially for a guy that's plying his trade out on the left wing mostly. Absolutely ridiculous. So we sort of got to this point in this game, right? We're part way through the first half, 29 minutes in. We've seen a banger from Buonanotte. João Pedro's done his penalty masterclass. Cruise control. Great. You're 2-0 up. Turns out the cruise was the Costa Concordia because we did our best attempt at essentially just trying to shoot ourselves in the foot. Sheffield United decided to just put a scything pass through the right side from their perspective, or down the left side of our defense. Cross comes in. No one's marking the guy in the middle. Easy goal. Gets checked for VAR. He's completely onside. What the hell happened there?
Well, it's a hell of a finish, for one. I quite enjoyed that. Like the number of times you see that first time finish go over the bar.
I didn't enjoy it, by the way. That's just something that might just be you.
Well, I mean, you can enjoy it at the end of the game, right? Like in hindsight, you can have a slightly patronising little round of applause to go, yeah, nice goal. But Verbruggen kind of, with the assist, basically palming it at almost the perfect speed for him to just be able to not even have to blink to put it in the top corner was slightly concerning.
Josh, I don't think we want to get into a goalkeeper debate here, but thoughts on the goal and how sloppy the defending was?
Yeah, Verbruggen doesn't trust his defenders at all, does he? I don't know whether Steele has a more ingrained trust due to just sheer length of time with the team, but Verbruggen doesn't trust them at all. And frankly, it's hard to blame him because neither do we as spectators watching them, and rightfully so with some of the defending that took place in that last 10 minutes of football in the first half. It was atrocious, wasn't it? Like I know that a back three isn't the norm for us, but we've been having these problems all year long with a back four anyway. We are just absolutely shocking at defending our man, like to a man. And it was you talk about like a masterclass from Pedro. Like that last 10 minutes of football was a masterclass in like how not to defend in any way, shape, or form under pressure, because capitulation was like an outrageously perfect word for it. Obviously, in hindsight, we can look back on it and think like, well, it didn't end up mattering, but we go back up there in 2 weeks, and we're not going to get that lucky twice, right? So we really need to just figure our shit out, man. Like it's just not acceptable. Like that kind of defending was shocking. And I'm not even going to put it all on Verbruggen, honestly, because I don't think he trusts them. And like I said, I don't either in their current state. So it's hard to argue with him.
No, we've already had a bit of a go at Adam Webster, but firstly, I'm talking specifically for this first goal for the time being. The ball that they played through was excellent. It was a really excellent pass. If you watch it, as soon as just before the ball struck, Van Hecke tries to jump up for an offside trap. Adam Webster not on the same page there. Did not do that. And as Van Hecke's timing was off anyway, he moved at the wrong time. So you could argue it's fundamentally Van Hecke's fault. Then what happens is he's lost his runner completely, Van Hecke, because he's wrong-footed. And then there's one other guy that's on the other side of the pitch. Webster's not close to him because the guy's sitting between Webster and Hinshelwood, where we've got the gap between the wing back and the back three. And then the player just coasts through. Adam Webster's too slow to catch up. Hinshelwood's too far out of position, and we've completely been done there. So it was a combination of a variety of things, but between Van Hecke, Webster's positioning, and then Hinshelwood's positioning in relation to Webster, it was a bit of a shit show.
Igor as well, isn't he? Igor's just, I'm not quite sure what Igor's doing, but he's not adding much to proceedings at this point.
He went out to cover, didn't he? He went out to cover the cross and that it wasn't. It was just bad. It just added to the issues because Purvis couldn't keep up with because of the quality of the pass. Purvis was wrong-footed. Igor went across the cover, and in hindsight, it'd have been better off of staying narrow. And I don't know whether that's him trying to automatically cover on instinct, or whether he thought I've been playing left back the last couple of games. The other two will figure it out, and I'll purpose myself as a quick left back here, but it was a bad decision either way because
basically
it was always in the
we just
goal.
got
So.
De Zerbi, didn't we? Really, with that goal, like they spotted that we were high up the pitch, and that one killer pass through would basically just cause carnage in our defence, which is normally what we love doing to everybody else. So you've kind of got to take it on the chin, but you know when it gets done back to you.
Yeah, it was a combination of Igor and Gross weren't able to track back. Weirdly, our two paciest players couldn't track back, but it was Hamer or whatever, the guy that ultimately put the ball in the back of the net. So yeah, it was not our finest moment. And then we sort of did the same crap 2 minutes later, was it? Something like that, 5 minutes later. It was right at the end of the first half. I think it ended up being like the 53rd minute or something like that. Again, they tried to cut down our left flank and put a ball in, and seemingly we didn't even bother to try to stop that. Any thoughts on that goal, or was it rather forgettable for you guys?
Just quickly to all three of you, what do you make of Gustavo Hamer? Because I've saw a little bit of him at Coventry in the playoffs, and I've obviously seen little bits of him here and there on like Match of the Day and stuff. And he's a total like enigma to me. Like I can't decide if he's actually proper class or if he's like out of shape and shit. Like I can't, and there's a big difference between those two things. But like, I actually don't know which one he is, or if he's both. Like a bit of a John McGinn. Like where he's like on his day he's absolutely brilliant, but like actually when it's not on his day, he's just like a slightly chunky, out of shape, crap footballer. Like he's a weird player. Like, and I know that sounds bad. Like I'm not exactly the most in shape person in the world, but I'm also not playing for Sheffield United, earning 70 grand a week. So like, what do you make of this guy? Like he's weird to me.
I've always thought he was okay. I think the John McGinn comparison is probably very apt, right? I think obviously not as consistent. I think the spectrum of where he's good and where he's bad is a lot wider than maybe most Premier League footballers. But like you said, like on his day, he's a very tidy footballer and can run a game by himself. I think there's no doubt about that. He did that in the Championship rather comfortably. But you're just seeing the chasm between the Premier League and Championship at the moment, where that consistency level is just not there. The first goal, he was just right place, right time, right? Catalogue of errors from ourselves means that they get a goal. And he just seems to pop up in the right places. It doesn't necessarily mean he's world class, but I think he's just there a couple of opportunities there and he's took them, which is fair play. I think that both of those goals are potentially even self-inflicted. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, second goal's a kind of trailing leg from Igor, isn't he? Playing him on side, ultimately.
Yeah, but not to bundle back on him, but Webster just decided not to mark the guy that ended up heading the ball in.
Yeah, it looked like he was trying to push the guy offside, which kind of would have been seen it. Like it wasn't. I think if Igor's leg hadn't been trailing, it would have worked.
Yeah. Well, again, it goes back to the tired thing that we keep saying, and I think you commented on it specifically, or Craig did to Webster a little bit earlier, right? How often have we seen Igor, Webster, and Van Hecker play together as a back three?
I doubt. Given that Webster's only just really come back, and before Webster was out injured, Igor wasn't really playing or hadn't played much. Potentially that might have been the first time.
Without Dunk to marshal the line.
Yeah.
Like it. And then this is what happens. You get players that aren't.
And then you have Verbruggen, who's not got as good, doesn't look like his communication is as good with the back four as Steele's is. Because for the Arsenal goal you had, it was Van Hecker and Verbruggen just not communicating, wasn't it? And basically leaving, was it Gabriel Jesus? Basically free at the back post with nobody there. So yeah, that combination of having your second best goalkeeper in terms of communication, a back three that hasn't played together, and not having Lewis Dunk, who normally marshals it, it would have been difficult anyway without any of the other bits and pieces thrown in. But it was a nice little throwback to that period where we used to concede 2 goals immediately in succession. So that was nice to see that, we've still got that in the locker. We've not totally put that to bed.
Happened with Alanga too. Alanga at Forest, exactly the same goal early on for Verbruggen and his fullback. no communication between the two of them.
So that is a bit
Same goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the tinkering is part of De Zerbi's whole thing. But I think you can tinker a little bit, but as soon as you take out the core cogs and components in that whole setup, and obviously for the backline, that is Lewis Dunk. That's when you get into these situations. I think we only concede one, if not no goals in this match if Lewis Dunk is marshalling the defense from the first minute.
I think either steal or dunk.
Right. Yeah. I think I agree.
Can't have neither dunk nor steal, I don't think, at this point.
And clearly De Zerbi thought the same, because out goes Igor in the 62nd minute and in comes Lewis Dunk. But anyway, just slightly before that, you have half time after none of us were feeling good at half time. We were all thinking, what the hell has just happened? What are we going to do now? The home fans are suddenly going to come out second half. They've got the belief now. The momentum shifted. Doesn't matter though, because we come out aggressive. De Zerbi's pumped them all up at half time, and we get awarded a penalty. I'll be honest with you, there wasn't even a thought in my mind that this was a penalty. I thought it was just a goal kick and we're just going to move on, and Evan Ferguson just didn't get enough power on his header. What was the thought? Was this a bit of a soft penalty as well, or was it? I mean, I guess technically it was a penalty.
It was a stonewall penalty. Like, I can only assume the amount of time it took for them to decide was because they were having to compose themselves after watching that choice defending that fella made. Like, what is he doing? Like, his arms are in the air like a wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man.
Nice.
Like, what is he doing? They're so like I don't even know how he got the machinations in place to put his hands where he did and jump with any kind of force at all. Like, it just looks like such an abnormal position for the human body to be in. And like Ferguson essentially was left heading his arm into the ball because it was so bizarre. Like, to me, it was the most obvious pen. Like, it was so bad. Like, so out of position, like such an unnatural spot for his arm
sort
to
of with
be,
Adam.
and needless.
I didn't see it. Like, the angle that I was looking at it first time, I didn't see it. But then obviously as soon as you see a single replay from a different angle, you go, yeah, the bloke's just punched the ball here, hasn't he? That's definitely a penalty. I'm with you. It's a really bizarre one. I'm with you, Joe. I can't get my head around how physiologically he's managed to do that.
No, Ferguson couldn't get his head around it either.
And the second point is, like, we've seen penalties given for handball where people are doing far more natural things with their arms than that. So if you're going to do something like that, then you've just got no defense at all. It's just daft. I'm not even sure what he was actually trying to do. But yeah, penalty, stonewall penalty once you see it.
Craig, I'm assuming you're probably in agreement there.
Yeah. I was going to do something incredibly rare and say I can't believe the ref actually saw it.
I thought the ref was quite good.
So and that's what I'm saying. This is the rarest part of the podcast. Like, I thought the ref was actually quite good. So for him to see that when nobody else did and was that sure and just giving it straight away, fair play to him.
Very good ref.
He gave both goals onside when they were. He gave the handsball when it was. VAR just confirmed all of his decisions.
Yeah,
I agree, Craig. I think you're absolutely. I'm glad you brought it up because
he's only
we love to talk about shit refs, and he was really
just
solid.
Started in the EFL as well. Like, he's only a couple of months in.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. His first game was in April of 23, and then he didn't have another game for 7 months. Sonny Singh Gill is his name.
Yeah,
I heard commentary said it was part-time.
Thing of him obviously being
Part-time.
the first like South Asian referee for like a decade, I think, to referee in the EFL. So it was I remember there was a few news stories around, I think, when obviously this earlier in the season when he started to go in. But I mean, if he continues to perform like that, he's going to be in the Premier League pretty quickly, you'd have thought.
Well, he has a functioning brain and 2 eyes, so I think already I'd put him on Champions League duty. So this is the highest profile games ever refed. Previous before this was Forest Blackpool in the FA Cup. So this was his most senior thing. Let the record show that this podcast, when there is a rare occasion that a referee does not the dumbest thing possible, we provide credit and praise. I don't expect to hear this again for probably another year.
But you know what he
Unless
also did?
Sonny
Until
Singh
he's
comes
back on.
Yeah, he's back.
He did something that very, very few refs do, which always irritates the hell out of me, which is he actually gave an advantage and then pulled it back for a free kick when we didn't get advantage. Whereas most referees play advantage and then immediately forget that they've just played advantage from a foul, and then they just carry on with whatever the next decision is. He actually watched the passage of play and goes, "No, they didn't get anything from that. Let's pull it back for a free kick." Which is obviously it's sad that you have to call out referees when they do that, whereas it should be just the norm in how they referee. But I thought it was excellent, really excellent.
João Pedro obviously steps up, does João Pedro things after the penalty. Discussion had on that. And then we tried our best a handful of minutes later to let Sheffield United get back in the game again. More abhorrent defending from Van Hecker, where he tried to win the ball, knocked the player over, but basically just passed the ball to the on-running Sheffield United attacker. Adam Webster, again, is marking nobody. Igor is marking nobody. Hinchelwood is somewhere on the pitch, but not where he arguably should be. The ball goes out to the left-hand side. Igor does not track his runner and stands in the middle, ball watching, and a guy has a shot on goal and arguably should be scoring that. That was on the 59th minute. 3 minutes later, Igor is taken off the pitch for Lewis Dunk. De Zerbi has seen enough. I do not think Igor starts the next game. I think we go back to a back two, and we are looking at Lewis Dunk and Van Hecker, because that was not his finest performance either. Thankfully, that was a brief moment in time. Sheffield United did not score. The universe did not twist and go out of our favour, because João Pedro is a Brighton player and put the team on his back once again. Scores another goal to seal his hat-trick. Thoughts on this one?
Great goal. I think we've talked about it's unusual that, he's not that great with non-penalty chances normally. Although having said that, his two fairly recent ones have been that clutch Marseille goal right at the end, which was a really good finish, and then this one from outside the box. So, it's a great finish. Whether or not it's the confidence from already having 2 goals, like whether he scores that if he hasn't scored any before in the game, not sure, but definitely at that point, he's oozing confidence. Great finish.
You know what's interesting about this one as well is now Lewis Dunk is on the pitch, marshalling the back line properly. Look who got the assist for this goal. Van Hecker is pushed up on the right wing and passes this ball to João Pedro, who, because we've got the overload of the additional man there's 2 Sheffield United defensive midfielders running towards Van Hecker. João Pedro is stood on his own in the D and then just strikes the ball into the bottom left-hand corner. You don't get that when Lewis Dunk is not on the pitch. Van Hecker doesn't have the confidence to push up into that position. So another thing where we saw that positive change from De Zerbi, we get some semblance of control back into the defensive line, and it creates attacking opportunities, not just deficiencies in the removing the deficiencies in the back line. After that, we actually were comfortable, and the game was just beyond Sheffield United at this point, wasn't it, Craig?
Yeah. I think once you got sort of that, well, I say insurance, but we were 2-0 up at the same time and still messed that up. But once you get to like the 65-minute mark, again, just the game naturally just gets away from them. I think energy-wise, it sort of tones down a little bit, and you kind of just sap the energy out of them, which is something that we're really good at doing. You put Lamptey on, you put Lallana on, you try and sort of get a little bit more energy as well for our side too. And it seemed fine from then, right? Like it was just like, okay, let's just see this out. We don't need to do anything stupid, anything crazy. Don't need to play a high back line that we're going to get penalized for, right? Let's just do our thing. And plain sailing from there. So, once you get that 4th goal, it really knocked the stuffing out of them. And it was just a means to an end, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Josh obviously rounded it out nicely. Good old Danny W with a pretty nice finish.
Caused some problems, didn't he? From the minute he came on, he ran those channels to death for the 20 minutes he was on for, and he just caused them no end of issues. I mean, I think I can't believe that, like I say it, but like I think I said it last week, but like we've missed him, haven't we? Like just that extra dimension going forward. I mean, it's even more apparent when there's no Odinga and no Mitoma and no Fatty and so on and so forth, right? But he is in CISO. He's a breath of fresh air when we bring him on. And that Sheffield United defense would just already run ragged. And I think, the way we play and we talk about all of the possession we had in a game like this where there is no second chances, right? Like you have to try and go and win the game. Like when you've had the amount of ball we've had, like I think it is moments like that where you start seeing the consequences of that for the opposition, because they looked tired, they looked out of shape in terms of their tactical positioning. And Danny Welbeck, being Danny Welbeck, was able to just exploit it over and over and over again in that last 10, 15 minutes. And fair play to him, great strike. I thought he was going to square it. I wanted him to square it, and he just absolutely lashed it. Shocking keeping as well, I thought.
Horrendous.
A lot better, but Danny won't care, will he? It's another goal for him. And, well deserved just for the amount of running he put in that last half an hour. I thought he worked really hard, and I'm really glad he's back. I really am. And to me, like I'm dropping Ferguson and starting Welbeck on Tuesday, no doubt about it.
No, I don't. Yeah. No, I don't think you'll get too many arguments there. By the way, João Pedro was absolutely thundering into the box when Danny Welbeck got that ball. Like he was ready.
That's why I said I thought he was going to square it for sure.
He was going like the clappers to get in there, and it was he was very close to rebounding. Quite honestly, if the keeper decided to play like a goalkeeper and not just have the ball bubble underneath him. But they nearly scored a bit of a wonder strike at the end, didn't they? Sheffield United, a bit bizarre. I don't know, we don't need to linger on it, but cannoned off the crossbar, didn't it?
Yeah.
Not that we were particularly scared at that point, but still.
Yeah. Would have been another little patronising round of applause from me.
Yeah, quite a few. But again, this is why I'm not going to just continue. I will get off my soapbox about this. But it's so nice to see a side play football against us, because it could have easily been a very different game for them, right? If we did concede on that counter attack that one point, and they made the game 3-3. They're completely within their rights to come away and win this game. They weren't just playing for just silliness, and maybe it's just because it's a cup game and there's no point of getting a draw here. But it was respect to them for doing that, which was.
But I mean, they've already had joy doing against it this season, right? Already.
Yeah.
They saw they had that spell, that last 35 minutes at the Amex. Obviously, we were down to 10 men, weren't we? Dahoud had done his red card by that point, but they knew that we were
not in the squad again, Dahoud, at all. Not even on the bench today.
If you're not getting in the squad in the FA Cup round, when you look at the number of people that are away or injured, then I think the writing's on the wall, isn't it? But yeah, I think Sheffield United knew that we are vulnerable in certain situations where you actually take the game to us. Like you say, Josh, I'm going to the league game in a couple of weeks' time, whenever it is. So I'm fully expecting not the same result as yesterday, to put it that way. It's I think it's a Sunday. It's a Sunday game. It's like a weird
on the 18th of February. That one.
Yeah, that's the fella. So, but yeah, I mean, I thought they were good. I was, given the fact that we seemed to spend the last 3 years being linked with Ben Barrett and Diaz, I was expecting him to score at some point.
Yes.
But no, it's good, into the next round, and an unbelievably disappointing draw away to Wolves, for people that haven't seen the draw, which is going to be midweek as well. The fifth round is all midweek, and it's the week before our European away game, I think.
Oh, brilliant!
Correct. So, yeah, all round, not a particularly good draw, really. We saw, Wolves are a different, as much as they didn't really try and play football against us, in the last home game, they are a different animal to what they've been over the last year, 18 months or so. So it will be a tricky game.
Transition from a Wolf.
Yeah, I mean, they can go, they can legitimately go for this, because, their good form of the last few months has pulled them well out of the relegation picture. They don't have Europe to worry about. So this is, if I'm Wolves, this is a game that you're legitimately targeting to go, we've got a chance here.
The only benefit that we have here is that there's no point for them camping out for a 0-0.
No, exactly.
So that's the only minor benefit that we
They've gotta
have beyond the league game that we played. So there is that. No prizes here for man of the match, I don't think. Is anyone not picking João Pedro?
No,
it's pointless, isn't it?
Pointless, isn't it? Yeah.
It's just one thing, just in the stats that I thought was fairly interesting, though. Wasn't his greatest game as we talked about, and he was taken off at the 60-something minute. Evan Ferguson had 100% pass accuracy on 27 passes, which for a guy that's playing as the central striker with his back to goal, having to hold up the ball, that's quite good.
Yeah,
that is fairly
got
impressive
assist as well, didn't he?
Yeah, we talked about that.
But I could have assisted that. You could have assisted that one. not saying much, is it?
He did look. He looked some way back towards the Evan Ferguson that I'm gonna say that we've become used to. We didn't really have enough time to become used to him, but the Evan Ferguson that we saw when he first arrived on the scene.
You know what's crazy is if we get one striker, and I say I'm not including João Pedro in this, right? If we get an Evan Ferguson, a Danny Welbeck, whoever it may be, to get a goal every other game, combine that with the speed and pace of which João Pedro is scoring, and then the bangers that the other guys are just throwing in every now and then as well, like we're going to get back to that crazy high scoring situation that we saw at the start of the year. Because there'll just be goals coming from everywhere. I mean, Christ, who hasn't scored a goal on this team at this point? We've seen Hinshelwood pop up with goals. We've seen Estupidian bang goals in. We know what João Pedro is doing. It really is like what?
Yeah,
Billy Gilmore and Igor?
Van Hecker scored. It is. I mean, yeah, it's Gilmore and Igor. And has Webster scored this season? No.
Probably not. Would have been one positive. All right, I know we've got Craig. I know Craig's got to jump here in a few minutes. We've probably got two other fairly important topics, unless I'm missing one to talk about. First is probably the managerial shakeups that are happening around the league. Obviously, the vast majority, at least half of Liverpool, fell to their knees in Aldi the other day, crying, absolute tears after hearing the father of Liverpool was walking away from the club. Was this the biggest overreaction you think you've ever seen in football? It's like, what's going on here?
Like I said on the WhatsApp group last night, like the way they're talking about him is that he's died, right? Like, let's just get that out there. This is not a football manager leaving. This is like someone has died. And two, yeah, I get that they've won. He has won kind of every major trophy for them whilst he's been there, and particularly that league title after they hadn't won it for 30 years, whatever it had been. But it's still one league title. This is not like someone who has led a domination of the league to the extent that Sir Alex Ferguson did, or that Pep Guardiola has done. Like, I totally get that he's achieved things that a Liverpool manager hasn't done in a while, and that's a big deal for them. But when you stack it up against the number of league titles that Ferguson won and what Pep Guardiola has done, like it seems a bit over the top in my book.
I mean, it's Liverpool fans. How could it not be over the top? I didn't just bring this up because I give a shit about Liverpool and their management, but obviously the knock-on effect here, and you couple that with Xavi Hernandez saying he's going to step down as Barcelona coach in June because he couldn't manage his way out of a paper bag, is put Roberto De Zerbi at the top of, well, not at the top, but second or third on the list of prospective managers for both of these clubs. I think if you look at the betting odds, I checked them a little bit earlier. I believe De Zerbi is second to Xavi Alonso for the Liverpool job as of now, and third or fourth in the running for the Barcelona job, behind Jurgen Klopp, who seemingly, if he's that tired and run out of energy, he probably needs more than about 5 days off to then go and take a Barcelona job. And then maybe the Girona manager, and I think Jose Mourinho, of all names.
Jose Mourinho is the current bookie's favourite.
I mean, he's the former translator who basically, he's the reputation for Barcelona for Jose Mourinho is absolutely in the dirt, but especially after what he did to like poking Tito Villanova in the eye and then, you know, all that stuff. Anyway, what do we think? Is De Zerbi here next season?
Yes.
Josh, Craig?
I don't know.
That's a fence sit.
Yeah, it's a classic fence sit. But yeah, there's gonna be more high profile managers leaving their post. I think this is probably just the start. I think a lot of people are gonna shuffle around. So I don't know. It depends entirely on how well we do this year. If you
ever thought about going into politics?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Gun to your head, yes or no? Is De Zerbi here next year?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, Josh.
I will give you a yes or no, but I agree with Craig. I think that the rest of this season shapes up truly whether he's here next year or not. I think
I'm going to disagree. I think if you look at the jobs, right? So you talk about Liverpool, like Xabi Alonso he just ticks every single box, right? He has done great things at Leverkusen. He is a Liverpool legend as a player. He knows the club inside out. Like, it's basically his job if he wants it. And I know that people go, oh, is it the right time to take it, etc. How many times are you going to be in the position to be offered the Liverpool job necessarily? Like, he's out of contract at Leverkusen in the summer as well. So, like, all of these factors come into play. Liverpool aren't going to have to pay to get anyone out of their contract. They can appoint someone who is not just Steven Gerrard, you know, who's won a league title in Scotland and then done sod all everywhere else. Like, this is someone who is, you know, leading a big club in Germany, is not lost a game all season, fending off Bayern Munich, despite Harry Kane, you know, scoring more goals in the Bundesliga at this point than anyone else has done in a season. So to me, like, if he's offered the Liverpool job, there is no way on earth that he's not taking it. And I think there's no way on earth that they're not offering it to him. So I think the Liverpool job is Xabi Alonso's.
What about the Man U job, though?
Graham Potter. Like, I know I said this tongue in cheek. I genuinely think Graham Potter will go there.
You don't think Potter goes to Palace?
No, Potter's the bookie's favourite for Man United at the moment. Comfortably so. Right, and I know that we've talked about...
I would love to see them in more pain.
Like, I know we talked about, obviously, Jim Ratcliffe seems to really like him and tried to get him to take the Nice job. I just see him. If it's not Potter, I don't think it'll be De Zerbi. And this isn't me looking at it through kind of the tinted spectacles, which is that the new owners won't have been in place long enough for a reputation to be established as to how they run that club. And I don't think De Zerbi takes the step into necessarily the unknown, as it were, of who am I going to work for? What's the vibe going to be like? Because he is, even if like we have a disappointing end to the season, right? I don't think necessarily that's his, you know, his kind of one chance at a big job going out the window. Like, he has replicated what he's done here at his other clubs, which is why we're interested. So I don't necessarily see him going to Man United just because we know that from his perspective, he needs everybody to be all in, right? Whether that's the owner, the CEO, everybody. He's that.
Rashford is all in, though, at clubs in Belfast on Wednesday nights. So he would have that.
Barcelona is the only one. Barcelona is the one that would worry me because I know that they've been following him.
It's the football that club wants to play. They want to get back to that football.
That club wants to play, but having gone for in Xavi, a kind of club legend, etc., sort of untested, as it were. Do they go for someone again who hasn't actually won anything major?
I mean, there's such a gulf in class between what Xavi's CV looked like. I mean, what was he coaching at one of the Owls?
Like Al Sadd, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and prior to that was Barcelona B.
He's not won anything.
I mean, he's not been given
a
squad to win anything.
No, agreed. But it's whether Barcelona will feel that they need to bring in somebody who is a proven winner.
Who is that though? Who's proven? If they can't get Klopp, if Klopp is taking time out, who on the market is proven? Because yeah, sure, Mourinho's proven. Mourinho is the antithesis of everything Barcelona represents a footballing club. The horrendous football that he would put out. He just got sacked from Roma because he was too crap. He's lost it, Mourinho. He's done. He's a dinosaur in a new age. So who else? I mean, you're looking at, what is it, Michel from Girona, and he's doing an incredible job. Obviously, it's an easy transition because you've got a La Liga manager that's just going to move to another La Liga club. You could argue Unai Emery's being talked about. Is he going to leave Villa? He's got a pretty sweet setup there.
I'd put Emery. If I was Barcelona, I'd be looking at Emery ahead of De Zerbi.
I don't know if I think De Zerbi's got. De Zerbi is the number one guy on the market for a manager's job that plays attractive football that hasn't ever been given a shot at the top level yet. I know there's a lot of caveats there.
I have one thing just to add to all of this, and I don't think he's going to Liverpool either, by the way. I think you're right. I think Xabi Alonso's taking that job, and obviously Bayer Leverkusen not going to come in for De Zerbi. They'll just go find someone else and do whatever they want to do. For me, that may end up being where Linders goes, by the way. Maybe you'll go there, something like that. But for me, Barcelona is the one. But the one thing that sticks in my head is that Barcelona are skint.
Yeah.
Can they afford De Zerbi? They sure as shit can't afford Emery. Can they afford De Zerbi? Like, De Zerbi has like a literal transfer fee clause. Like, we all know this. Like, they've been very clear about it. Like, can Barcelona afford to essentially buy De Zerbi from us and his whole coaching staff, and then pay them whatever they need to be a football management team, and then strengthen in the way they need to in order for that to happen? And then bear in mind what we've just been hearing over the last couple of weeks that we've really not talked much about, but that Barcelona are very, very clearly bought into this new Super League. And I can imagine what De Zerbi's thoughts are on the idea of a Super League. Does that match his identity and philosophy as a football club? Yes, he could probably get them back to that play style, but everything they represent off of the pitch feels like the absolute, like, De Zerbi's worst nightmare in the way he wants to operate. And that's where I don't think that he's going to go to Barcelona. Definitely not Liverpool because of Alonso. Like, it's just such a no-brainer. Like, anyone else, I would be just flabbergasted if Alonso.
He's odds on for that reason, right? It's Alonso or bust.
But for me, that's where I get hung up on the Barcelona stuff. Not the Barcelona Football Club and Roberto De Zerbi on the pitch is a match made in heaven. Roberto De Zerbi and everything Barcelona currently represents off of the pitch gives me major pause in a good way for a Brighton fan, right? Because we all want to keep him as to the viability of that deal going through at all. And that's my point on it.
It's a good point.
Logical choice for Barcelona as well, which is they've got Rafa Marquez, who obviously played for Barcelona for a decade, probably. He manages their B team currently. So
they love promoting the B team.
So if you're looking for a kind of, like you say, Josh, if you're looking for a cheap option in terms of not having to buy someone out of their contract, if you're looking for someone again in the Xabi Alonso mold who knows the club, who's captained the club through periods of success, and has kind of cut their teeth in the Barcelona academy in terms of the B team, then it ticks a lot of boxes for Marquez to come in and, basically wait, because Barcelona's finances are probably going to come round, right? Like, something's going to happen.
They'll just sell more shit to the highest bidder.
Yeah, they'll
Spotify, Camp Nou, there's something else.
They're selling their broadcast rights. Like, they've already done like all of this century.
Levers on top of levers.
Yeah, so they're going to do next century's broadcast rights, so they'll be fine. So I think Marquez is probably, if they're looking for, the cheaper option, then it's probably him. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think we'll have, my honest opinion is I think we'll have De Zerbi for this season and one more, and that takes him to pretty much his contract, right? I would imagine.
I agree with everything that you've both just said. And you've said a lot of rational things. I think if Barcelona comes for De Zerbi, which they arguably should, I don't think Bloom blocks it. And despite everything you've said, there's no way De Zerbi turns down no one turns down Barcelona. You don't turn down Barcelona, you don't turn down Real Madrid. And that's pretty much that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm with Josh. I don't think they can. I'm not convinced they can afford to do it.
They'll find 20 million down the back of the sofa. But anyway, the point being is that so basically the consensus here is that De Zerbi stays probably, hopefully, for another season. My suspicion, I'll go on the other side of that just to be contrarian, which is unlike me. I actually think he probably goes this summer, which would be a great shame. There's just too many jobs.
Oh, I think he goes, by the way. No, I think he goes.
Oh, you do? Oh, you do?
Yeah, I just don't think he goes to Barcelona or Liverpool. I don't
Where
know
does
where
he go then?
I don't know, but I just don't think he goes to one of those two. I think that we're going to get to a point at the very end of this season where we're going to have done quite well, and he's going to have an end of season meeting, and he's not going to like what he hears, and he'll throw himself with some kind of ultimatum as to the fact that he doesn't feel supported, and he'll get gaspoited out of the club without
Christ. You've done a whole you've put a narrative to this. I didn't realize. I just thought it was a yes or no, but you've gone full story on it.
It's just based on almost a full calendar year of him asking for more signings and getting none of them. Sooner or later, he either shuts up about it because it really is all just posturing, or it actually isn't posturing and the straw breaks the camel's back somewhere. And if he thinks he can get more money and a more ambitious club, in his opinion, where he can win trophies, then I think he'll go. But I don't think it's Barcelona or Liverpool.
Does he? The elephant in the room is the fact that his family still live in Italy, right? So, how is he looking for a move back? Is his next move going to be back to Italy?
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I'm imagining.
Who can afford him there, though?
People say he's probably going to have quite a young family. So I don't know. Is it? That's the other unknown. I don't know.
Well, I will say that let's put a pin in this because it's gonna. We'll see how the rumors circulate over the course of the next few weeks. Because again, Klopp and Xavi aren't going to be the only departures from their respective clubs.
Well, Eric Ten Hag is on the brink, given that Newport have just equalised against Man United.
Oh my! The Rashford thing also. Let's not downplay that. That is an absolute. He was the one where of all the people. Yeah. Anyway, that's not our problem, and it's funny to witness it. But let's talk about transfers, right? We are still bizarrely in the January transfer window, even though you might actually forget clubs are allowed to make transfers at the moment, considering how little business there's been. We have been outside of Barco. Kamari Doyle joined at a sort of a youth level from Southampton. Lot of hope about this guy's future.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild that we are continuing our trend of paying millions of pounds for academy prospects, which is, I mean, the rumor, I don't know exactly how much we pay for him, but for this one, it's it is seven figures. It's a 7-figure fee, which is wild. We're not that far beyond, never having spent that amount of money on anyone. Apparently, he made his debut against us at the Amex in the Southampton game. He came on towards the end of the season where we secured European football. Obviously, the kind of attention was elsewhere, so I didn't really note a Southampton academy prospect coming on in that game when we were doing our best to, our best Albion impression of throwing something away. But he is obviously very highly thought of. He seems to have been playing through the England age groups. Refused to sign a new contract at Southampton, which is why they've moved him along. Interestingly, Southampton's take on it is they couldn't offer him the guarantee of the minutes that he wanted, which seems a bit bizarre then, that if a championship team kind of chasing promotion to the Premier League can't guarantee him minutes. I'm not necessarily certain that he's going to get those minutes straight away with us, but
no, he's just joined the club he's joined the bigger club.
Yeah, I mean, good luck to him. Yeah, obviously, a good coup because, for a long time, the Southampton model for a lot of Albion fans was something we aspired to, right? Especially when the academy first kicked in. This is what we kind of envisaged. So yeah, it's nice to be, pinching their players, and after that whole weird sort of Nigel Atkins rivalry in League One, the whole "Are you keeping up?" thing for people of that vintage. I don't think I'd be rolling out that reference ever again, but it's nice to bring it in.
A callback.
It is, it's nice to start pinching their players, which is good. And I noted we also signed a textbook Australian goalkeeper with a mullet as well, which is, no transfer window is complete without bringing in a goalkeeper with questionable facial hair and a mullet. Like, I mean, that's just, and we're kind of going through like the bingo card of signings, right? So you've got like the kind of South American wonder kid for the window is in the bag. We've got the kind of Taylor Richards, academy prospect that everyone thinks is going to be the next big thing in the bag. We've got the goalkeeper with the mullet and the weird facial hair in the bag as well. So the only thing we're lacking is
a championship star, up and coming mid-20s player that's a fairly pivotal role in this club.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Thoughts on that? And we're talking about Kieran Dewsbury Hall of Leicester, if people aren't picking up on that. Josh?
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to happen, does it? Could end up happening in the summer if Leicester fall apart, but I imagine by that point he'll be far too good for us. At that point, he'll be far beyond what we're able to pay, and he'll either stay at Leicester or he'll get a move to a much bigger team than Brighton of Albion, frankly.
It's a weird one. It's a bizarre one because David Ornstein went in really hard on the story out of absolutely nowhere. So David Ornstein, obviously from The Athletic, for people that don't know, he's generally one of the
tier 0.1 normally.
Yeah, he's generally one of the the sources that really doesn't hang his hat on anything, until there is some substance behind it. And it was a bizarre one because it came out of absolutely nowhere as far as I'm concerned. I hadn't seen any rumors about this around. So it kind of ticked that box from that perspective, which is, we used to go through that. Well, it's similar to João Pedro, right? Like the João Pedro signing was sort of announced out of nowhere, with no sort of, there'd been no links or anything like that. So it kind of fitted the bill as, the type of deal that we do. And it was odd that Ornstein had hung his hat on it quite as, as hard as he seemed.
As much as we praise Ornstein, though, this is a guy that came out 5 months ago with the headline "Brighton reach agreement in principle with Ajax for Mohamed Kudus." So it's not like he's, hasn't jumped the shark before Ornstein, as good as he is.
Yeah, that's fair. But Sky Sports obviously just went totally the opposite way, and we're just like, no, there's nothing in it. Leicester want 40 million. Leicester might want 40 million, but he's not worth 40 million quid. Like,
well, he is to the Leicester fans. If you look at them, they were in uproar at this news that came out, basically saying, "Why on earth would we do this? Like, unless it's a financial fair play thing, and we've got to offload some money."
But it's saying João Pedro is worth 200 million quid to me. Doesn't mean that that's what we'd get if we sold him.
Yeah.
I think objectively, the 30 million figure is about right. I think if you look at obviously look at João Pedro, with that kind of figure. So if you're looking at players that are performing, are kind of stars in the Championship, and he's what, mid-20s, 25?
25. He scored and assisted a lot this season.
Yeah, decent amount of Premier League experience as well. 30 million is probably about right. I wouldn't be hugely, I would probably be surprised to see it done, but it is an odd one to have been picked up, without a fair amount of momentum behind it. Seems a bizarre one. We'll have to see. What 4 days left, 3 days left of the window?
Yeah, barely. We're recording this on the 28th to people listening maybe a day or two later. So yeah, there's only a handful of days left in this window. I think what's the main thing that's interesting to me outside of this, though, right, is how much De Zerbi is, in fact, maybe changing the transfer culture of this club, and where we're at on this trajectory going upwards in terms of the footballing world and stature of the club. Famously, right, we don't do much in January transfer windows. And here we are getting fairly, there's no smoke without fire here. Like, this is clearly Brighton have had a verbal based bid that's happened that's going to be around that 20 plus 30 million mark. So we're talking about trying to pull off a signing of a midfielder worth about 30 million plus right at the tail end of January. So clearly that tells us a couple of things. De Zerbi is not happy with the depth that he has in the squad still, especially in that central midfield area. I think we can point to Mahmoud Dahoud not working out being probably one of the key pieces of that. And the fact that Bloom, Barber, and the rest of the staff are willing to make these bids and transact in January. And that's big for us. That's interesting. That's an interesting shift. So even if it's not Kieran Dewsbury Hall, it might be someone else. Because was there any single Brighton fan that was even talking about the idea of Kieran Dewsbury Hall to Brighton more than 72 hours ago? Not even one.
No, that's what I mean. That's why it's such a
Remember
bizarre
that.
one.
Remember that when you think you're getting all those people who claim they're super sources from Brighton and Hove Albion on the internet, guys. No one knew anything about Kieran Dewsbury Hall until Ornstein threw it out. And then all of a sudden, all of them knew all along, apparently.
Yeah, no, it's obvious.
It's crazy, right?
But you look at the deals that we've done recently, that's obviously João Pedro one came out of nowhere, right? That's just announced that we've signed João Pedro, and everyone's just like, what? Ansu Fati one, no links in that. Suddenly it's like, right, Ansu Fati's coming to Brighton, and everyone's just like has FIFA just, has FIFA just...
By the way, another callback. We talked about this before. Don't forget the importance of that Ansu Fati loan deal about relations between the club when it comes down to De Zerbi and Barcelona.
That is true. But you look at other deals that we've done, other Barco's the only one, right, that's kind of been trailed for a long time in terms of, us being linked and, deals being done, etc. But most of them come relatively out of nowhere. So that's why...
and that's how we have to operate now.
Yeah.
We talked about this last week. People will just come in and step in and offer, 5 million more, and that's that. I don't know about you, but we've talked a lot here. I'm getting a bit thirsty. If we want to, Josh, if we want to drink maybe at the next Brighton game, how do we go about doing that?
I love that segue, Adam. I do have one more
thing. Perfectly natural.
I do have one more thing to touch on before we wrap as well. But we are coming towards the end of 2024, but we are in the final kind of two or three rounds of the AFCON. We've obviously just had the FA Cup. We've got some Premier League action coming up in the middle of the week. So feel free to beat the January Blues and watch every game with the atmosphere it deserves down at your local Green King Sports Pub. Don't settle for a dodgy stream. If it's on the TV, it's on at your local Green King across their huge HD screens this January. If you download the Green King Sports app that we've talked about a couple of times on here, you'll also receive 10% off every single drink whenever there's a game on. So you can't say fairer than that. And their venues offer a range of low and no alcohol options. So dry January doesn't mean you have to settle for a worse sports watching experience. Good luck and congratulations to all of you doing dry January if you've been successful. I feel like I just live like a dry life, so I've done fine. Don't know about you guys, but the one thing I wanted to touch on as well is this FA Cup that's coming up in the end of February, and the scenes we witnessed today at the Hawthorns. For anybody who's unaware, Wolves fans were in the West Brom end and caused an awful lot of trouble. Really horrible scenes, really. I know that at the time it was kind of like funny to watch, but when you watch and you see the injuries some of these people had, I think a ball boy was like badly injured as well, like for just existing. There's got to be repercussions here, right? Like this, there is got to, and they're quite severe, right? This is 80s light, essentially. Like obviously it's nowhere near the same level as hooliganism back there. I'm sure there are a couple of old people listening to it immediately like, oh, back in my day. Like, I know, trust me, believe me, you were very cool and tough then, I get it. But it was horrible stuff. and there have got to be massively powerful repercussions here. Do you think that game is played behind closed doors, barring away fans? Do you think only Albion fans are allowed to that game? Do you think it extends to the league? Like, what sort of punishment do you think?
Do Wolves get kicked out of the cup and we just
I
cruise
mean,
into the quarterfinals? I mean, that's the ideal scenario, right?
I mean, that is probably a branch on this timeline, right? Like that from that all the way to absolutely nothing happening. What do you hope for, what do you expect from this? Like, because I think we're going to see a really severe reaction here from the FA.
I
just don't know what it's going to be.
Big reaction in the press, everyone to argue about it for days, and then I expect the punishment to not fit, to just not stack up to it. I expect it will be a fine. That's because, like, generally, like, if they're not going to do, like, if you look at what's gone before with, you know, racism stuff, etc., like, they don't have a strong history necessarily of coming down very hard on this. The only thing is that when you get something violence like that, it becomes like the pictures that you get from it of, you know, the people covered in blood, etc., etc. And I'm trying to choose my words carefully here because I don't want to say the wrong thing, but it gives you a more clear picture that something's happened than necessarily where there's been a racist comment shouted from the crowd, because with that you don't have the picture necessarily that goes alongside it, if I'm making any sense. It's very obvious that this is something very serious. So I don't know, and like you say, we've not had to deal with it on this scale. I mean, what happened? I guess the last time was when that Birmingham the Birmingham fan ran on and punched Jack Grealish, right?
Well, we just had a lad in the was it the Portsmouth whatever game yesterday running on a pitch trying to chase the bloody ref.
It was was it a Port Vale? Was it a Port Vale fan or was it a Portsmouth fan? Not sure.
One of the it was a Port. One of the Port.
Yeah, I did see brilliantly on Twitter that the club actually had quite an important grammatical mistake that they made in their tweet to condemn it, and they've probably removed it now. But originally they said, "We do condone the actions of the supporter," instead of "We do not condone the actions of the supporter."
I will add the latest that have come out is it was a Port Vale fan, by the way, but apparently the Wolves fans were singing "Let Him Die" as a West Brom fan covered in blood gets led away by police. So interesting.
Yeah, it's really sick. Like I'm sort of with John. I mean, I don't really know because, we haven't had to see it. I mean,
it wasn't just one fan either, right? Like it was a crowd of them, like, and it stopped the game, and like it was delayed due to the fact that like they needed to get so much medical attention into their stands. Like this isn't like some knobhead running onto the pitch and punching Jack Grealish, which is an absolute disgrace.
He got jail time, didn't he? But I don't think anything happened. I think probably the club would have got a fine from it. But I
think they got a fine. This is far next. To me, this is like way worse. Both in the amount of injuries that took place and cynically optics, right? It looks terrible. As you said, Robin, like you can get like a thing written the next day from Forest talking about the fact that they don't condone homophobic behavior and they're proud fans or whatever coming out and saying like they did over celebrate, though it's a bit over exuberant, so we kind of are okay with what they did, but don't do it again. Like, because you say no one, like it's just a piece of text on a tweet that people are making a statement on. You've got people with like crimson masks of blood like pouring down their faces.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like I was kind of
so.
It's difficult. Like I say, I wasn't kind of trying to sort of talk it down in terms of comparisons to racism.
That's more vivid. It's more. It's easier to see the crime.
Yeah, exactly. Vivid is exactly the word I was kind of searching for, which is it's front and center. That kind of thing. Like that is going to be on the front pages tomorrow. That's not going to be just on the back pages. That image of the fan basically covered in blood, that is going to be on one of the front pages tomorrow. And when football moves from the front page to from the back page to the front page for something negative like that, then something's got to be done. In terms of what the sanction is, I'll be on. I know he said tongue in cheek. I'd be very surprised if it resulted in Wolves being kicked out of the tournament. I think that's highly unlikely. Behind closed doors, not sure. I don't know, but I say it's very difficult to predict because we've not had anything at this scale for such a long time.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it nets out. Of course, we're the ones that are playing Wolves. Again, with all that and the way that they play, just the most sort of garbage draw for us. But hopefully, we smash them and not off the pitch. So, any other? I know we've been talking a long time here. Any other thoughts? Obviously, through to the next round. That's great. We've got this game coming up against Luton on the 30th. What is that? Is that Tuesday?
Tuesday night. So
some people might be listening on the same day. Okay.
Yeah, Tuesday night, Luton, Saturday, Palace.
Luton away. Any predictions for Luton away and predictions for Palace at home, scoreline wise?
Win both.
Yeah.
We simply have to be looking at doing that, right? Like, I know it's like obviously win both would be nice, but like we are not being arrogant or over expectant of our team of football players, even with the injuries we have, in expecting and hoping for 6 points from those 2 games. So
and at some point,
I
say this for every Palace game, but at some point we are going to batter them. Like, it's been coming for like 3 or 4 years. At some point we are going to batter them.
It would be quite nice if we smashed them so badly that this was the game where Roy was like, I'm too old for this shit.
Well, what happened last year? They lost 1-0 and Vieira got the boot, didn't he?
Yeah.
So
let's. Could you imagine if we are the ones that basically kick off, get Roy out, that ultimately ends up with Graham Potter taking the Palace job? Like, we might end up pushing that domino.
I did think about that. I did that. I mean, if they come to us and we put 4 past them, right? 4-0, 4-1, 5-2, even again, like just a result like that where they're just humiliated. Like, it could well be like we've had enough. We're doing it now. I know we talked about the summer, Graham, but we'll bring you in now, and we will not hold the next 4 months against you whatsoever. Like, there's like, even if it's written into the damn contract, like that you're, I don't know, like ironclad or something, like just get in and help us. It would be wonderful. I would love that.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how that goes. I'm in agreement. This is a 6 points minimum, 4 points, couple of games here. Anything less, you're fairly distraught, especially given you've got 2 draws on the trot. And let's face it, even prior to that, right, our results in the league: draw against Wolves, draw against West Ham. We got the 3 points versus Tottenham, draw against Palace, loss against Arsenal, draw against Burnley. You've got to have a couple of good results here. Our league form has not been good lately.
Exactly.
You want this, you want the 6 points here. So it remains to be seen. If there's nothing else, I say we probably wrap here. For the people listening, thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us live. For those of you live, we'll see you probably after that Palace game next Sunday, and we'll talk about the 6 points we gained from Luton and Palace.
Yeah.
I mean, between now and March 16th, when we play Manchester City, it's one of our nicest periods of football you could ask for. So,
yeah, agreed.
Yeah, it's important.
Sweet. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time around.
Thank you.
See you next. Thanks. Bye.